Hiya! Welcome to this, my 64th episode of VideoFuzzy. I'm your host, Terry J. Aman, sifting my basket of media memories, and in this installment, titled Unfluential, I talk about the series finale of The Shield, turned up in my classic collection. I added the series finale of The Magicians to my current collection, and oh man, so many movies I've been watching. Welcome to the show.
He doesn't have that on video, does he? We'll find out together on VideoFuzzy.
I wanted to start out with a happy Easter, everyone, except like all of them lately, this episode has been taking forever to put together. It's not any one thing. I've been fine. I work at a hospital, so I've been working. Life in North Dakota just generally exemplifies social distancing, so age of Corona hasn't impacted me much, but yeah, I've been writing this episode for more than 3 weeks now. It has grown beyond all attempts to confine it, so locking it down, squaring this off, I give you episode 64, Unfluential. Yep, the title reflects my recent birthday. Happy birthday to me! It was a month and a half ago now, but it was significant. I turned 50, so I'll never stop talking about it. I'm 50! So damn old. Yeah, forgot to mention it last time, but it occurred to me recently that turning 50 means that I have fallen out of a prize demographic. Womp womp. So, yep, I'm no longer a white male aged 18 to 49, a prime target of advertisers to be leveraged for my presumably disposable income. I went from being a celebrated media influencer, spittin' hip, insightful whiz-bang Yoda, one-side grey muzzle. We're making teen dramas about teens texting kicks and TikToks with their pretty little liars and sexy, edgy 20-somethings figuring out this thing called life all up in each other's bedrooms. We'll call you if we need a hopelessly muddle-headed grandpa character. Practice saying things like, "You kids get off my lawn!" and "Back in my day!" and "How do you work this confounded DVR?" Whoa. Hit a little close to home with that one. Just a scrap of old business. It's all old business, pal. Shut up your face. I wanted to quick congratulate Geoffrey Mac, the winner of the Season 18 Project Runway. I've been rooting for him throughout and named him a couple episodes back as my favorite to win, so who's unfluential now? Oh, me, still. Exactly. Still, well done. He has an amazing style, and I'm so glad it carried him through to his victory. Season 18, I think more than past episodes, has consistently celebrated a range of body types, including a non-binary model appearing throughout the competition, and featured accessible and adaptive fashion to the differently abled, including a Paralympian challenge. It was a fun season to watch, and a lot of talented designers, and Geoffrey won, my favorite one, so well done, Unfluential.
Friday Night Feature.
A few weeks ago now, I encountered Family Meeting, the series finale of FX crime drama The Shield, on discs 870 and 871. The episode brought to a head, well, quite apart from the sting operation du jour, how can you close down 7 seasons of a tightly wound, tightly written badge opera that opened with the darkest, most fratricidal of crimes, the cold-blooded murder of the fellow officer? Pilot episode of Kurt Sutter's The Shield, Michael Chiklis' Detective Vic Mackey shot Officer Terrence Crawley, newest member of the strike team, with a drug dealer's pistol. His team was aghast. Vic operated on instinct. He saw Crawley talking to Benito Martinez as LA's Farmington Police Precinct Captain David Aceveda. He saw Crawley talking to drug kingpins. He saw him talking to internal affairs officers, drew him to his inner circle of backyard barbecue, asking him to join the strike team. That very evening, raid on Dealer 2 place. Vic shoots 2, grabs his weapon, murders Crawley. We know, because it happened on our screens in front of us, that Vic was right. Aceveda was positioning Crawley to join the strike team so as to bring Vic down. Vic had grown arrogant, actively corrupt, as the head of Farmington's own Special Ops Squad. By way of demonstration, confronting a man accused of child abduction and pedophilia, Vic didn't concern himself overmuch with the pedo civil rights. The camera panned away, and whatever ensued resulted in Vic learning where the girl had been stashed away. While clearly power-mad and corrupt, Vic's charismatic draw was unmistakable. In the wake of terror attacks and lawless behavior, audiences craved stories where the cops cut through the rules and political correctness. The Rodney King trials and riots and subsequent reforms had been more than a decade past the 2002 premiere. They wanted the bad guys roughed up some. They wanted results, which Vic Mackey served up in spades. He was gleefully brash, brazenly physical, and, should his objectives say athwart a few bent rules, to rules that fee themselves bent. Good cop and bad cop went home for the day, Vic said in that episode. I'm a different kind of cop. Surging with testosterone and their own sense of street justice, Vic and his core team of Lem, Shane, and Ronnie played fast and loose with the concepts of law and order, a Machiavellian approach that positioned the police as just another heavily armed gang on the streets of L.A. As the series continued, misdeeds accrued, as well as felonies, cover-ups, coercion, rancor, infighting that led to more cop killing, Shane targeting Lem to silence him and protect his family. There was Antoine Mitchell, the Armenian money train, Vic sleeping with the ex-wife of an internal affairs investigator just to mess with him, and high-level corruption and blackmail. When the feds quite inevitably got involved, Vic sold Ronnie out for immunity, in the wake of Shane's confession and suicide, where Shane first poisoned his ailing wife and son to protect them from Vic. That's a lot. Circling back to the original question, how do you close all that out? Well, you bring in Laurie Holden as DEA agent Olivia Murray. Her team is trying to bring down a significant drug-running operation, and Vic, God help them, holds the means for doing so. There's some side activity where Vic helps her out of a sticky blackmail situation involving S-Beta and payoffs, earning her gratitude and offer of immunity. Should his evidence secure the drug bust, he'll be granted immunity for anything he confesses to. There's a clock on the deal, so he plunks down and outlines every single thing we've seen him do since the pilot episode. He started with first-degree murder, and it went from there. Murray was horrified. Her superior, observing, asked what the hell she'd gotten herself into. As the confession wore on, Murray's eyes went dark, staring, seething as he rattled off a power-mad catalog of felonious infractions, but if he was going to step clear of this, he needed to be thorough. Insistent as he'd been on the immunity, she had to know it was going to be more than a few parking tickets. Hell, Vic's official file alone should have been a Semaphore Drill Squad consignment of red flags, but deal she made. Confession secured, Murray made several attempts to thwart Vic's efforts to make good on his part of the agreement. If he didn't make the bust, she signed confession for official no-goodniks going back half a decade. But loyal to the end, Ronnie to the rescue helped Vic secure the immunity by helping him make the final strike, shutting down the cartel, as well as running interference on the Shane stuff, and of which Claudette, as station command, directs Dutch to lead Ronnie away. Ronnie is flummoxed. He thought Vic's deal was for both of them. He'd have been cool with making a run for it, taking his chances. That's what he said they should do in the first place. Ronnie stayed on because he trusted Vic, and as the final piece clicked into place, he was raged. It took 4 guys to hold him back, but hold him they did. The next moves were up to the lawyers and internal affairs. Sitting here thinking about it, Ronnie might have the better outcome. Sure, he's a corrupt cop involved in a lot of shady dealing bent on lining his own pockets with ill-gotten lucre, but he never took the lead on any of this stuff. He was mostly support, technical know-how, go-betweens, input, and strategy, never part of any big-picture conversations. He knew what he was doing and was in total control of his comfort level with everything Vic was doing. Yes, at any moment in the past 5 years, Ronnie could have cracked a beer with Vic in his backyard and said, "Wow, that Crawley thing. Dude, seriously, we've really got to pull it together, fly right, focus on fighting the crimes, yeah?" Or conversely, while Vic was busy carving up Farmington like Boss Tweed with a cake, he could have walked up those stairs at any time, sat down with Aspeda, with Captain Rawlings, with Billings, with Claudette, said, "Hey, what Vic is up to with Shane and Lem and me, it's seriously gotten way out of hand. We need some intervention." He might have been listened to. He might have been shut out of the strike team. He might have been targeted, but Ronnie's a smart guy. He'd have put an evidence drop together as an insurance policy. That's the thing. A lot of what happened in this show depended on Vic's leadership and everyone following it. It was completely believable because Vic was an outsized personality and group dynamics are a thing. End of the day, we're all responsible for our own actions, but it's an easy argument to make that Vic ran the strike team. You do what he says or else. With his record, Ronnie's a good prospect to make some kind of a deal, maybe even avoid prison entirely. Vic, on the other hand, having made the deal, Murray made sure he was going to regret every miserable moment of freedom he'd won. In terms of their agreement, Vic reports to Disgraceland, a tiny gray cubicle. "It's suit and tie here," she hissed. "Lunch hour, go home and change." Vic clearly purchased his dress shirt several sizes ago, and he's hulking out of it. His duty, while so attired, is to advise DEA officers of local drug trafficking operations in a daily memo, at least 10 pages, single-spaced. "This isn't what I signed up for," he barks. "I don't do desks." "Fine," she fires back. "Then you violated your agreement and will be prosecuted for everything you confessed to. Read the terms of your immunity deal. Mandatory drug tests once a week, 5 written reports a week. Unfortunately, it's only for 3 years, but I'm going to see you feel every single day of it." On the heels of Shane's murder-suicide and his betrayal of Ronnie, in the wake of his family disappearing into witness protection, Vic is looking at 3 years of the worst kind of Scott desk work, which, as the series concludes, he's already behind on, looking out the window as sirens wail in the distance, feeling the uselessness of what his life's going to be now. Now, there's some kind of message to be explored in the idea that dressing like a grown-up, compiling a 10-page advisory memo every day, and peeing in a cup once a week is the 6th circle of hell, when for other people it's simply their job. As Drew Carey once said, "Oh, the support group for people who don't like their job, it's called Everyone, and it meets at the bar." But this one was crafted specifically to torture Vic, so for the 3 years he's doing it. Yep. I've shared my thoughts on the Shield elsewhere, so at the risk of repeating myself, so happy to have most, if not all, of this series archived. Sutter's attempt to give a street-level view of proactive crime fighting gone off the rails reinforced an uncomfortable number of stereotypes, and together with 24 and Criminal Minds and a media environment of high-octane cable news coverage in the wake of the 9/11 attacks and War on Terror, contributing to a trend in American television that can fairly be described as at least authoritarian-friendly, the writing on the Shield was strong, the characters charismatic, the action sequences compelling, and for sure this team knew how to tell a story. While the series generally celebrated the might makes right approach to law enforcement, in the end, there were no victories. No one won. No one got away with anything. 7 seasons culminated in a cautionary tale for us to be better. Great job, everyone.
Cross Connection.
10 episodes back, I talked about misremembering Agent Olivia Murray as having been played by Mary McCormick, maybe, or Ally Walker, rather than by Laurie Holden. I was recording the 7th season of The Shield at the same time as they were airing the first season of Sutter's Sons of Anarchy, featuring Walker as Agent June Stahl, another tough yet comely federal agent, so it's easy to understand how over the course of a dozen years the performances might blur. The fact is, Holden's performance opposite Chiklis was fantastic, and the Shield finale so full of iconic moments. I'm not terribly surprised at how fresh it felt when I pulled it up for this feature. I remembered how Shane had arranged the bodies of his wife and her son next to each other, the care he'd so clearly taken. I remembered Ronnie's celebration of the drug bust, the depth of his betrayal. I've already traced Glenn Close's involvement in the series to her work in Sorkin's The West Wing, so the Studio 6 Feet Under challenge is barely a heartbeat, but if I attempt to trace through Laurie Holden, I've got her with Chiklis again in Fantastic Four, and I've got her in Tech War Tech Lab with William Shatner, Boston Legal Connection with Ed Bigley Jr. of 6 Feet Under, so all the connections are easy. A recent Will and Grace I'll be chatting about soon drew more of a spiritual connection with I Love Lucy, as Grace, Jack, and Karen all took turns in the iconic title role, and the run-up to the series finale featured Community's Yvette Nicole Brown and welcomed the return of Happy's Patton Oswalt. Fun! Finally, I caught sight of an unexpected connection while watching Freeform's Motherland, Fort Salem recently. Episode 3, A Biddy's Life, was directed by Amanda Tapping, who I highlighted in episode 61 for her leading role in the sci-fi series Sanctuary, so solid connection there. Good work.
VideoFuzzy at the movies.
I have been remiss. I have seen several movies over the course of the past couple months or so and neglected to comment on them. So, in no particular order, not too long ago, TNT ran a couple of significant Marvel Cinematic Universe installments I'd not managed to see in theaters. Glad to get my eyes on them here. Their presentation of 2018's Black Panther, from what I'd gathered from social media, Infinity War, and Endgame, I don't know if TNT just edited it all to hell, but I don't think I got the glorious introduction to Wakanda the original must have conveyed. The focus was on the action sequences. I got T'Challa's coronation challenges, of course, and the blinky light sciencey lab, fancy. I got the James Bond sequence and the car chase adrenaline, along with the backstory intrigue and the inter-scene squabbles that reconfigured in the face of a common enemy. Wakanda, not quite so isolated and sheltered, mayhaps, as Themyscira, was all the same the hidden source of the world's supply of vibranium via meteorite. The tribes united under a charismatic ruler, blessed by the panther goddess Bast, and surreptitiously built a glorious kingdom, harnessing the secrets of vibranium and, despite being so well positioned and provisioned, shutting out and shielding all knowledge of themselves from the outside world. Alrighty then. Initial thoughts. Actiony movie is packed full of action, and power struggle between Chadwick Boseman as T'Challa and Michael B. Jordan as Killmonger is exciting, and their divergent philosophies regarding power and its use are... it lost me a little, but Panther Suit versus Panther Suit was awesome, and the completely separate issue of taking its place at the UN diplomatically as a nation-state was largely symbolic, but aligned with the sort of leadership T'Challa was philosophically predisposed toward, so it all fit, and in the end we all felt better about him because he seemed honorable and noble and like he cared about his people, and you're hearing it, right? I know its happy ending was happy because Hero won. There's no foregone reason for that outcome. Honestly, Killmonger had exactly the kinds of chances he'd totally have taken to win, so the version I saw was 2 hours and 9 minutes long, while IMDb says the movie is 2 hours and 14 minutes long. Knowing that TNT compresses the credits to nothing, it still feels like something else must have gotten cut, but in reality that was probably mostly the movie that theatergoers experienced, except smaller, which absolutely could have been part of it. But I feel the story as told fell a bit trite, which is not the reaction I was expecting. It's certainly not what I was expecting based on other people's reaction to it. So, yep, I seriously must have missed something. Great origin story, a fine addition, for sure, just... yeah. TNT also presented 2017's Thor Ragnarok, which I'm also okay with having missed in theaters. This one definitely sets Thor up as a comic foil. Absolutely the dude bro I saw post-showdown in Endgame. The moments where Thor communes with Allfather, parallels with T'Challa chatting with T'Chaka, just remembering that, really, sitting here. What I'm remembering about Ragnarok is mostly that Maleficent shows up and is a total nuisance, and Thor's visions about releasing this demon would bring about Ragnarok and the destruction of Asgard, and then with the belated realization of, oh, right, it's how he can defeat Hela while still saving the Asgardians. And something about that just twigged a memory from the Magician's finale, but I'll get to that when I get to it. Best part of Ragnarok was, it was at least 3 different movies, and one of them was Spartacus or something, where Thor and Hulk were pitted against one another in, like, intergalactic karaoke competition with Jeff Goldblum, wait, that was a thing I saw in Vagrant Queen on Sci-Fi. I suppose I'll get back to that one as well. No, Goldblum is a super wealthy autocrat living in 18th century France, or America now, where he's super rich and he pits giant death machine champions against each other for his amusement. Another completely other movie involved Doctor Strange somehow, and a third movie was the showdown with Hela on Asgard, and all of them blended together beautifully, I'm sure, but right now I'm just looking back and forth at IMDb, wondering if for sure all of these people were actually in this one movie, and yep, they sure were. I feel like they were doing everything they could to make this installment relevant and nudge everyone into position personality-wise for the Avengers Infinity War the following summer. Having watched it out of order, I guess I didn't feel like I'd missed all that much. The one I really want to see at some point now is Ant-Man and the Wasp, but the rest of these waited for free cable, and that one will totally wait as well. The FX Movie Channel also aired the 2017 Insta-classic Murder on the Orient Express, starring Kenneth Branagh and an entire otter as world-famous Belgian detective Hercule Poirot and his mustache. His mustache and accent fell away quickly enough as distractions in this period classic. Compared to the mid-30s book, it moved well. Compared to the star-studded, very faithful 1974 version filmed near the end of Dame Agatha Christie's life, it held its own. Mr. Body isn't given a lot of time to establish his central role in the film, but I feel like his conversations with Brenna and with Michelle Pfeiffer set the right tone. If you enjoy this podcast and don't already know the central conceit of the story, that surprises me. I can't imagine this is the thing that will be spoiling a classic tale published nearly a century ago, but yeah, ultra-posh, upscale luxury train conveys Brenna, Dame Judi Dench, Penelope Cruz, Michelle Pfeiffer, Daisy Ridley, Leslie Odom Jr., Johnny Depp, and Josh Gad, who tracks directly to Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip with Ada Field and Back to You. Direct link. Of course, Kenneth Branagh was with both Will Smith and Kevin Kline in Wild Wild West. Will was the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air with Studio 60's D.L. Hewley. Kev was in In and Out with 6 Feet Under's Lauren Ambrose, so as a production, not too terribly far removed from the mystical centers of my media collection, along with everyone Kev works with on the regular at Bob's Burgers, but I digress. All sorts of people are booked on this lavishly chartered affair, which comes to include world-famous detective Hercule Poirot and Mr. Body, that is, Johnny Depp as Edward Ratchet, a cantankerous wealthy con artist and the recipient of threatening letters, draws him aside, concerned for his safety. Poirot declines his case, citing his being an objectionable person, but when he turns up dead, is compelled to investigate. He's got time, too, once the train gets stuck in a storm. The case resists solving despite a million clues as suspicions fly in every direction and the revelation risks his own life into the bargain. Yeah, if you're the one person who doesn't know how Murder on the Orient Express resolves, I'll let you track it down on its own. This one, the 1974 vintage, or just the book straight from the tap, they're all quite enjoyable. Branagh's atmospheric production was saved to disc X309 in my current collection. The 1974 production, incidentally, also shows up in my current collection back on disc X190. David Suchet's Poirot series took this on as well in 2010. I can't say for sure if I've got that one anywhere or not, but most of these adaptations were excellent, and in this case, the time period they're all generally set in was dead on, so if it shows up, I'll for sure chat about it. FX Movies also presented Frances McDormand's Tour de Force 2017's 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, which was unfortunately Boulder Heist for television, but while the subpar dubbing effort detracted from the energy of the piece appreciably, I still got a sense of its power. A mother's rage at justice delayed in the wake of her daughter's rape and murder more than a year before leads her to purchase a high-profile media campaign, 3 roadside billboards, demanding justice, calling the sheriff Willoughby, played by Woody Harrelson, out by name. In the resulting hornet's nest stirred up by this action, she and her shop staff are targeted by law enforcement, as is the ad company. Her ex-husband confronts her, the parish priest. It's all just go there in Ebbing, and for sure she's got supporters as well, but as new leads present themselves and justice spontaneously fizzle, McDormand as Mildred is determined that justice will be done. I got a very strong sense that this piece would present very well on stage, and also that while the racism is at times cartoonish, it's a valid contribution to the national conversation on justice and the police. Another flyover piece, the sci-fi presentation of 2010's 6 Souls, Julianne Moore surprised me as the forthright, determined, practical and skeptical psychiatrist, yet also devout believer, Dr. Kara Harding, disavowing and debunking multiple personality disorders, whose atheist father is insisting she keep an open mind. There's a patient he's working with who seems to have a suggestible control switch. Kara investigates him, his home, where he grew up. She is drawn in different directions and discovers evidence pointing to multiple personalities based on possession by a demonic presence. The backwoods lore she encounters suggests her faith may be protecting her from his influence, but her family and friends are in danger. 6 Souls was an interesting addition to this collection, not as storytelling, which was ultimately a lame paean to unexamined religiosity, but the casting of Francis Conroy from 6 Feet Under and Nate Cordry from Studio 60, making everyone involved in this production intersectional in the mystical center of my media collection. Julianne Moore, Jonathan Rhys Meyers, and it gets a little random below that, but Kara's father, Geoffrey Mac, showed up in The Practice, The Blacklist, The Good Wife, The Walking Dead, yeesh, and actually in the West Wing, so connections just pull tighter and tighter and tighter. Kara's daughter, Sammy, was played by Brooklyn Prohl, who connects to Holly Hunter and everyone involved in Saving Grace, including Kenny Johnston from The Shield, so absolutely intersectional piece. And diving on into the purely conceptual, I saw promos once for Jennifer Lawrence and Javier Bardem in the national release of Mother, and then just as abruptly did not. What I could see of the movie looked interesting, but it was hard to get anyone to say what it was about. A woman's life is upended when unwanted guests invade her home. Of minor interest is the title, another clue that maybe the director didn't even know what it was about. Lowercase m, capital exclamation point, quill and ink on parchment. The artist creates, and then reality sets in. IMDb user reviews for this art piece are all over the map. Allegory for the Bible, the religion generally, 10 stars, 1 star. For sure it's an unusual situation. Generally, one's home doesn't present sucking wounds. The worry with reference and allegory is, what do you do when it spins entirely out of control? Is Jennifer Lawrence the world? Mother Earth? Bardem is God, the author, the creator? What of the child she births in this home she's restored but can't maintain? Is Jennifer Lawrence the muse, the inspiration, the crystal she protects, the creative spark, the child she bears, the creation? Are the unwanted guests a creative team giving notes, horning in, tearing apart? The feckless, charmless fans who enjoy and demand, co-opt and change, pull strength with slash-fic and fanfic, but don't nourish? Or are they all of humanity, an expression of limitless selfishness that takes and destroys without appreciation? The movie is content to present us with archetypes locked into self-generating story loop. The artist pulls the crystal, the only thing of worth and beauty, from a pit of chaos and ruin, places it at the center of his life, from which proceeds a creation of wonder. Jennifer Lawrence as his loving, devoted wife and lady of the house, a miraculous construct and nurturing shelter for their family with an engine of dark chaos lurking beneath. First one guest arrives, his nature genuine if his manner coarse, and his wife joins. She's awful. Michelle Pfeiffer again, really giving her battle axe persona a workout. They break in where they're not allowed and break the crystal. Jennifer is aghast. Javier demands they leave. Get out of the house. But the man is dying, and he's such a fan. Javier takes pity, takes him to the hospital. Their grown sons arrive later at the house to dispute their inheritance, and they're seriously disruptive, violently so, as Javier and their terrible mom return to yell some more. Not to mention this house is like a bad dream, where, seriously, I told you people to get out. I shut and locked all the doors, but turn your back for a second. The doors are standing open. Random people keep wandering in, all to tell Javier Bardem what a brilliant creative genius he is, in response to which J-Law becomes all the more jealous and possessive, not least of which why she's learned she's pregnant. And what follows is, I gotta believe, the experience of at least some pregnant women where others surround and take over and barely acknowledge her, all but take ownership of the child she's bearing. Hell, once the child is born, it's all she can do to forge any alone time to bond with him, nourish him. Javier is grabbing him away, holding him aloft, wading out into this crowd that's all sprung up, and J-Law this whole time is, seriously, what the wresting her baby away, secluding herself in a room with him and Javier. They're safe. Finally, exhausted, she falls asleep with her child in her arms and watched over by her husband, this artist, this great poet. Throngs of hundreds, maybe thousands of people have sojourned to their secluded home to see him, demand ownership of him and of her child. The gall, the presumption. Decorating her home, destroying her home, hopping up on counters. She tells them repeatedly to get down. What the hell? Guerrilla troops and gunfire invading her home? At last, she's safe, alone with her child and Javier in her room. She closes her eyes and sleeps. When she wakes, the child is nowhere to be found. Her child and Javier. Her house is once again stuffed full of wandering well-wishers, partygoers, and randos. They're celebrating Javier, but where is he? He's got the child, but the crowd has taken the child and... oh, for fuck's sake, they're eating the child. As she makes this horrific realization, maybe a moment or two before Javier actually hands her some on a cracker, she bursts into flames, destroys her home and herself with it. The destruction is complete, but Javier plucks the crystal from the center of the chaos and wreckage, from which proceeds a new creation, centered on his loving and devoted wife, J-Law, which is where we came in. So, certainly allegory of some sort. Like I said, what it's an allegory for is a bit unclear, which is where the effort falls a bit flat. As something of an introvert, just jam-packed house scenes where random people are suddenly painting my walls is enough of a horror film to be straight-up horror. Also, from perspective of homeowner in one's home, randos just coming in and breaking stuff is upsetting, but it's hard for it to avoid being slightly comic, too. Like, you opened your home to these idiots, what did you expect? So whether it's meant to be the Bible, the environment, the creative process, whatever it's meant to be, it's a piquant, often dramatic piece with occasionally outrageous violence, and for a piece featuring a newborn rent and passed about for consumption, the only real subtlety seems to be the point. By no means the worst film I saw, though. That distinction goes to what is generally acknowledged to be the worst actual film ever made. Those statements require criteria, so I'll lay in my baselines as storytelling, intent versus execution, script, emotional impact, continuity, pacing, acting ability, and then a few additional categories I generally take as read but stood out in this piece as being especially bad: sound, cinematography, and lighting. 1,000 years ago, when we were allowed in other people's homes, I met up with my friend Jesse Zimmerman specifically to watch terrible movies, and I do still have several candidates. One I brought with that we did not watch was the 2003 romantic drama, The Room. Jesse, there are people who know us who will laugh at this, said that the movie was one of the few he has actually walked out of. Meaning that he must have been viewing it in a theater, and it's hard to believe it was in a theater for any length of time, in that it's hard to believe that it was ever in theaters at all. But given the range of films Jesse is willing to watch and even enjoy, this critique is telling. Now, I don't feel it's necessary for me to pile on with the hooting and bashing of Tommy Wiseau's poorly organized incel fantasy, but having watched the thing I'm going to, we open with an apparently joyous homecoming, Johnny coming home to his beloved Lisa, bringing her a beautiful gown that she can't wait to wear. Random neighbor kid in the bed with them is random, but okay. Then there's an extended lovemaking session shot in real time, so he's totally doing it. We are too doing it. Shut up. I totally touched a boob. Cut to the next day when successful banker guy Moneybags of Chameleons heads back to work, and Lisa is apparently on her own to complain to her mother about her unfulfilled life and arrange an affair with Johnny's best friend Mark, because girls are dumb and evil and they sometimes have wrong feelings and a mind of their own. It's wrong that they look how good I am to her. Girls are dumb. Let's still get married though. And they do. She never once talks to him about her feelings, about the affair. They glumly lurch toward the wedding like everything's just fine. She's banging his best friend, Mark, and Mark never takes him aside. Bro, you didn't hear it from me, but you and Lisa need to talk. With this bizarre anti-drug message woven through the final third of the piece, and up through the gothic horror of the reveal, this towering betrayal, Johnny's confrontation with Lisa, his slappy temper tantrum and suicide, eating a bullet in the living room. Come on, Johnny, wake up! Then Lisa begs Mark to stay with her, be with her, but realizing the destruction she's caused, Mark rejects her. You can fall off the face of the earth, he says. The best is when that neighbor kid, Denny, comes back into shot, and he's so agitated to find Johnny dead he calls him Tommy. And all the crying and everything, Mark's rejected Lisa, but they all come back to comfort Denny, thus becoming a family, forged in the loss of, clearly this was the greatest man ever to have lived, a lion among us, and oh hey, he's still clearly breathing, so maybe he survived the bullet to the brain after all. I mean, I realize I've got no background in human psychology, but I'm just not sure the field applies in this film. It's a Greek tragedy, the kind you get if someone hit Euripides in the back of the head. And while I can hardly fault Jesse for rejecting the slow-moving slag heap unwatched, I was determined to watch it because I also own The Disaster Artist, and I intend to watch it at some point, and this will absolutely make that a richer experience. Technically, it is absolutely a sequence of still images combined with an audio track that, when fed through a projector, results in an apparently moving picture. So, yep, The Room is totally a movie. It is, however, a boring story told poorly. The characters are barely one-dimensional and insufferable, the set uninspired, which is a shame because it's all that's going on most of the time. Motivations are unclear, conflicts unresolved, and personalities unhad. It's like Johnny and Lisa, 7 years of angst and unspoken feelings has finally driven her into the arms of another man. Jesus, that could be a phenomenal fight if anyone ever gets around to writing it. That was most of it. Oh, I mentioned lighting, sound, and cinematography. Yeah, sadly I was able to see and hear the whole thing. The Room, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be here all week. Tip your waitstaff.
Diving into my classic collection.
The movies were a lot this time, and I already went into a good amount of what I wanted to say about The Shield. Ultimately, such a good show, especially after taking in some bad productions and some terrible productions. One of the things that really stands out about The Shield is that no one was all good or all bad, and things didn't always work out for the best for everyone, but they generally made sense. Kurt Sutter understood power dynamics, group dynamics, leadership, organizations, structure. The stories he told, the pressures he brought to bear were so believable. People's motivations were trackable, and the things they did made sense. There was an opening sequence for the Miss Marple Mysteries with Joan Hickson in the 1980s. I'm really hoping those turn up in this collection one of these days. But the opening sequence was the inner workings of a pocket watch. The springs and gears unwind above a pleasant, if mildly ominous melody line. Some larger, some smaller, a constant, insistent drubbing of one cog on another. Pressures you'd never suspect looking at the exterior, then pulling out to reveal the watch lying next to a dead body, and the unmistakable implication all these tiny inner workings, small daily interactions, petty jealousies, snubs, asides, and day-to-day life of a small village can result in murder. Details, motives, interactions. The writing team clearly talked about this stuff, how they'd try to catch Vic and how an experienced problem solver like Vic would respond. Sure, occasionally Vic knew a little too much about what was going on, and that still made sense. Vic Mackey was essentially a predator on the hunt all the time. His situational awareness was heightened. It made him good at his job, and it kept him sometimes frustratingly safe, but it also cued him into opportunities that he could take advantage of. Generally, maybe 80% of what he did, maybe just 80% while on the clock some seasons, was morally justified in pursuit of law enforcement, despite a disturbing comfort level with sociopathic behavior. Toward the end, most of what he was doing was entirely in pursuit of self-preservation, keeping his family safe, keeping his pension, or at least maintaining access to funds. And the cameras were on him a lot, but even with Vic running his own minor criminal empire at times, fed by a level of loyalty among the members of the strike team that morphed into something akin to mutually assured destruction, what went on at the barn and throughout the precinct generally made sense, because Sutter constructed good characters and gave them good direction. Unlike an episode of Life I encountered from its second season, Black Friday on Disc 874, I guess the writing was on the wall and they were just playing it for laughs at this point. Charlie and Danny encounter a dead body at a mall on Black Friday, moments before the mall would open for shoppers. It comes time for the mall to open, so it just opens, and everyone stampedes into the mall, and voila, the body disappears. This is still the LAPD, right? And the fact that homicide detectives Charlie and Danny are even there means that the uniforms have long since cordoned off the entire area, forensic teams already getting everything they need before Charlie and Danny's feet even hit the floor that morning. There will be no stampeding. Mall management has been called. The costumed elves are not anything like opening the doors to a bug-eyed, commercially frenzied public. I didn't watch much of that episode, but what I caught said I didn't need to. I caught a fun episode of Chuck that explored an ex-romantic interest where our level will intersect. Chuck vs. the X on Disc 878. I didn't watch a lot of this one either, but it was fun to watch an entire CIA spy operation focused like a laser on making Chuck seem cool. The Boston Legal 5th season episode Roe presented a quite well-spoken and apparently thoughtful if willful teenager seeking emancipated minor status so as to pursue an abortion over the course of what appeared to be, while personality-driven, a fairly responsible exploration of current abortion law as of 2008. And on Disc 873 I found an episode of Ugly Betty in which America Ferrera, as editorial assistant Betty Suarez, is put in charge of making the final call on the printed copies of Mode that are shipping out. Her boss is in an executive retreat and his phone is out of range, and just as the tornado-themed cover is about to ship out, an actual tornado rips through the Midwest, destroying entire towns and generally being, well, something of a downer. So Betty is faced with completely redesigning the cover or sending it out as is, and the fashion magazine seeming a little tone-deaf in the face of a natural disaster. I can't remember the resolution offhand. I remember the print guy being a little unimpressed with Betty's notes either way, but I do remember this being a strong episode for Michael Urie, playing Wilhelmina Slater's assistant. Quick peek at IMDb, glad to see he's been able to stay so busy since that series went off the air. I could seriously go on and on. My cataloging efforts took me through disc 880, and I encountered a lot of items worthy of discussion, including the elementary school musical episode of South Park, where a talented third grader overcomes an abusive situation at home and follows his dream, the final Krusty the Clown episode on The Simpsons, featuring a 12th season attempt by Sideshow Bob to assassinate Krusty. A 4th season Criminal Minds episode explored profiler Spencer Reed's memories of his father and his abusive, possibly murderous past, along with significant episodes of True Blood and Pushing Daisies, Fringe, Skins, even the universe. The list just goes on, but it's time to jump right on into,
checking out my current collection.
Before I get into this, congratulations to Christine Morse, not only on the recent birth of your adorable daughter, but her and your whole lovely family's appearance in a regional ad for the Dakota Hope Clinic. Well done, all of you. I learned on Facebook of its existence moments before I chanced to see it running during a local newscast, and I quickly recorded it to my Disc X303. It technically would have been part of my last podcast, but better late than never. Christine and I worked together with the Minot Area Theatrical Society 1,000 years ago now. I just wanted to say it was a great ad. You guys looked awesome, and all the best to you and yours going forward. The series finale for The Magicians aired, and no, I wasn't blown away or anything like that, but I was satisfied, which I feel at the end of a series like this, it's part of a fan base like The Magicians had, it would be difficult to manage, but yeah. Following the heist episode where we left our heroes, they'd recovered the World Seed, an homage to In Loco Paquentas, where Alice traced a page to her dear friend Quentin Coldwater had preserved, its significance evident when the mystical realm and fountainhead of all magic, Fillory, had to be destroyed in order to stop mystical surges of magic from destroying everything. The team figures that they can destroy the unstable version of Fillory, but rebuild it again with the World Seed, so in a very real way the late Quentin Coldwater has contributed to the saving of all magic, a lovely nod in this finale, but hardly the only one. He was honored again in the name Penny and Julia chose for their daughter, Hope Quentin. Meanwhile, in the wake of Fillory's destruction, Alice and Zelda are blocking the beast, newly escaped from the underworld, from traveling through the Netherlands and savaging other worlds. Alice isn't certain she can do it. Magic is so much more complicated now, she said. The circumstances are off. And Zelda tells her, "There's something master magicians know," she said. "You can never fully control external circumstances. They may even be actively hostile, but you can control the ones inside you." Nice. Later, the team is rebuilding Fillory. Alice calls upon this teaching to focus their energy on the World Seed, to craft the world, the fountainhead, restoring magic in the mystical homeworld. Native Fillorian Fen begins a question to rebuild the world, but realizes that the world she grew up in, imperfectly designed as it was by craven pedophile and feckless disinterested gods, had plenty of room for improvement, and as she dreamed this new, improved, more equitable homeworld for herself and her people, the seed responded in kind. Oh, that was the connection I was drawing through Thor Ragnarok. The team held a vessel into which they transferred the entire population of Fillory so as to bring them into the new Fillory. That memory sparked in watching the Asgardians fleeing their dying homeworld on their way to the new Asgard. Cool. Closing out the series finale, they'd cut together some behind-the-scenes footage with the cast reacting to the series and this lovely sentiment shared by director Chris Fisher. In Season 1, we learned magic is real. In Season 2, we became kings and queens. In Season 3, we rode a ship around the world in search of adventure. In Season 4, we lost someone we loved. And in Season 5, we discovered that everything we need, we already have. If we've spent 5 years making a show this beautiful, working this hard, taking care of each other other and treating each other this fairly. Hopefully we've changed in these 5 years. And I just want to challenge you guys. Go out there, raise a torch, light a way. Be a magician. 2 final thoughts, one now and one I'll circle back. I feel this line was placed perfectly, but in their showdown with the Beast in the library, Zelda urges Alice to hurry back and help her friends. Alice fears for Zelda's life. She wants to stay, she wants to help, but Zelda waves her off. For a librarian, death is not the end, she said. It's just a transfer to another branch. I want to hold on to that thought. There's a lot of comfort in it. Awesome show, everyone. Awesome series. Well done all the way through. Another with strong close to its 5th season, a Better Call Saul finale, drew battle lines for its 6th and final season next year, Gus Fring versus Lalo Salamanca. The suspense-driven, action-packed showdown at Lalo's hacienda was riveting. The 2 episodes preceding, however, contained some of the best writing and acting in the whole series. On the heels of Bagman, the bail money handoff and cartel shootout in the desert, Mike picks off the assailants and he and Jimmy make their way back to civilization, avoiding the main road to evade the cartel gunmen who got away. Then Jimmy pays the $7 million to bail out Lalo, who first heads south, but a nagging suspicion brings him back to Jimmy's apartment, where he confronts Jimmy about his unconvincing story of what happened, and Kim, seriously, the kind of advocate you will always want in your corner, lays into him about, what are you talking about? Who knows who's driving around the desert, shooting up abandoned piece of crap cars and shoving them into ravines? And no disrespect, but if your operation is so untrustworthy, you've got to hire Saul Goodman to bring you $7 million in bail money, and he delivers it. You've got bigger concerns. Well done, Rhea Seehorn. If Twitter could give Emmys, never mind Emmy, you deserve an Oscar for that, maybe a Grammy. Are there just awards that we could give? If Twitter could give Emmy, she'd have to build a new wing after that performance. There's more fun with Howard warning Kim about Jimmy and the 2 of them planning something unforgivable. This show works on every level. I'm very much looking forward to next season. And moving from the sublime to the absolutely ridiculous, I have to take issue with whoever's short-run episodic college project resulted in USA's Briar Patch, which I believe ran something like this. We forced a bot to watch 1,000 hours of Quentin Tarantino scripts, and it screamed, "Lisa, you're tearing me apart," and committed suicide, but first it wrote the following treatment for Briar Patch. A beautiful Latinx woman drives up to the soundstage for an online porn operation in a cop car, which blows up. Her beautiful sister Allegra arrives via a charter plane. Elegant takes the fanciest room at the fanciest hotel. There are tigers in the hallway. The newspaper guy is a 1,000-year-old wad of chewed fat. The skinny black lawyer in tropical shirts went to school with Allegra. Everyone went to school together. There's a homeless man lives in an RV who is always dressed like he walked out of an ad for high-end cologne. He's a master blackmailer and also super poor. At the center of the conspiracy is a bearded vet with PTSD. He's super rich, but he's also super poor. He's been living at the big fancy house since the accident at the meatpacking plant. He keeps a beautiful Asian woman with bare feet locked in a refrigerated closet. She's his lawyer. He has a geisha lawyer. The house has giraffes walking around it because there was a breakout at the zoo this tiny bankrupt backwards Texas town somehow has. The house belongs to a crazy man broadcasting political nonsense in the desert. There was a blackout and the big fancy house is the scene for a machine gun shoot-'em-up, crazy black and white dream sequence driving a car through a desert. The sheriff is running for mayor, but rich old Ed Asner in a meeting screams at her she can't be mayor. Rich old white man picked the mayor. It matters who's mayor. Her car blows up. The blackmailer is shot by her deputy. A bodyguard I never mentioned is also shot. He later attacks Allegra in a hotel. She is eaten by a tiger. Allegra works for a senator who is corrupt. She is accosted by teens in animal masks who point a gun at her. She makes fun of them. A bunch of undocumented workers hide out at the meatpacking plant, which is burned down. They escape. There is a final showdown between Allegra and Bearded Vet at her late sister's home. He points a gun at her, and she walks away. Self-consciously precious music from genres and artists who do not seek out plays. There's also infidelity and betrayal, and can I watch something else now? Only 658 more hours to go, you say? Samuel Jackson, Uma Thurman, Glom, Zingo. Goodbye, cruel world, cruel world. Goodbye, cruel world. Since the USA production was barely 10 hours altogether, I feel like I got off relatively easy. Oh, the music and the dialogue and the scenes and the attitude and the adrenaline were all great. Well, they were all fine. The sets were good. They tended to be good, but it built to nothing. Last scene of Hamlet, everyone's dead. People died nearly one per episode. No one left to care about at the end. And I can't speak to the quality of a production that posits a hornet's nest above the sheriff's porch, full uniform, heading to work. She hears a buzzing overhead, breaks into the ceiling out there, and she swats a couple of hornets away as she reveals their nest. Well, rude? She scrapes at it and it falls into her paint pan. She pours more paint on top of it, and as she walks away to work, having committed this home repair, the camera pans up to reveal the patch job is perfect. I see the message. Something's wrong in her town. She's going to investigate, dig it out, repair any damage, fresh and new. Anyone's ever met a hornet's nest, you don't just swat a couple away while you're digging out their home. They're on full defense. Your fresh, sweet face would be covered with stings. They fly! Drop their home in a paint pan, and the ones out of the paint, practically all of them, would be expressing their dismay, and you'd be left with no doubts regarding their feelings on the matter. And that's one scene in one episode of 10 that we're all, oh, how interesting I'm being. If you saw it, you know what I'm talking about. If you missed it, Pulp Fiction was better. Well, it was shorter. Briarpatch had potential. Might even have been interesting if I'd understood the significance of these real estate deals that the entire finale had built to, complete with circling camera work, but everyone was being so arch and double, triple crossy that it frankly devolved into a confused, wordy mess that I was happy to leave in my rear view. And even that was better than the sci-fi production of We Miss Firefly so much. Alternate title, Vagrant Queen. Elida is the title royal on the run from the insurgent republic. She's teamed up with a human, Isaac, and is... Nope. Can't do it. This was the one where they were having that karaoke contest to the death I mentioned up there. This is all listed as taking place in some other galaxy, not yours, but they're singing Jefferson Starship, so wow, they're way more famous than I'd have anticipated. Isaac is the only human. Elida is a pretty chill queen, but you know, when your subjects rebel and overthrow your space monarchy, you adjust. I've seen several of these now. It's not getting better. Based on what I've seen, it's not likely to. I wish them well, but I'm out. Will and Grace posted their final farewell episode again, and absolutely these guys with their laughs, japes, and hijinks, it's been fun. I loved how the finale touched on the various jobs Jack has had, and he's forced to consider whether he's actually still got them or not. Am I still a nurse? Do I still own a bar? No, he decides, but the question is open. Will is determined not to be nostalgic about leaving New York, moving into his new home, but when Corey comes back from London, he's absolutely persuaded. Jack takes a bow on the Broadway stage. Karen is reunited with Stan. Grace gives birth. It's all quite a happy ending for all of them. The thing I wanted to highlight was not the finale, but a couple episodes back, Grace just bought Will a dishwasher and tried to install it herself, leading to mountains of soap bubbles all over the kitchen. This led Will to remark that Grace was definitely his Lucy, and Jack and Karen point out that they were much more Lucy than Grace. What happened was an insanely funny trip down memory lane where each of the characters swapped in for the Lucy role in a short Groundhog Day-style sketch, each then cutting to an iconic Lucy sketch. Grace hawked Vegeta vitamin, Karen stomped grapes with Leslie Jordan on frock as an elder Italian woman, and Jack tried keeping up with an out-of-control conveyor belt with chocolates. Oh my, wow, that was fun. Finally, Will, complete with uncomfortable Cuban accent, serenaded his trio of Lucys on stage as Ricky. That whole episode was so much fun, particularly for Ralph and me, who absolutely quoted the show around the house. Wolfie!
Yes?
You got some splaining to do!
Where?
So damn much fun. Thank you, guys. The series reboot definitely had some highs and lows, but this episode was top-notch, an homage to the golden age of television comedy, worthy mining for some absolutely side-splitting comic gold, and a great addition to the final season. Well done, guys. Post Sandra's wedding, Superstore has been striking me as being especially weird. Don't get me wrong, it's one of the better shows on television, reliably funny sitcom, bold, long-standing refusal to add a laugh track, and a show with a visible commitment to on-screen inclusion. The characters maintain a pretty good range of diversity, including, a couple episodes back, Nikki, a second employee in a wheelchair. Maybe there are lots of shows with multiple characters in wheelchairs, but they're not occurring to me offhand. It's just, wrapping up to the finale, Sandra's trending a little serial killer, replaying video of Carol's electrocution accident over and over again, but like an episode later, Syed and Glenn confront her about her distressing lack of pregnancy weeks after her wedding, and she said, oh, they're planning to adopt. And Glenn shows up with a 17-year-old. I can't tell you what my response to this move would be, because I am not putting an E rating on this podcast, but Christ, Glenn, hearing that someone's thinking about adopting someday doesn't mean walking out with the 17-year-old you found for her. I do not understand who Sandra is in this show. The quickie adoption was one thing, but one of the things Ralph and I had the biggest problem with in the season finale was the fact that they were planning Cheyenne's 21st birthday. Cheyenne, how the hell? She was working full-time when she was a pregnant teen, must have been her sophomore year in high school, and her mom was in prison, and Glenn wasn't concerned about that. Oh, and then a second kid. Not to mention they had a time jump while Amy was on probation, and for fuck's sake, the actress is in her friggin' 30s. She's maybe having her 25th birthday, but oh child, no. The trouble they've had paying rent, the fact that they've talked about this and it matters to them, the initial plan to just have a really small celebration that turned into the video they'd put together to promote Shyfest 2020 pulled at my frame advance. They were promising DJ Khaled, Billie Eilish, Harry Styles, Taylor Swift, Tiffany Haddish, Drake, J.K. Rowling, Aquafina, Malia and Sasha Obama, Gritty, Brad Pitt, Danny Duncan, Kylie Jenner, Andre Agassi, Sandra Oh, Chris Angel, Fast and Furious Car, Demi Lovato, Lin-Manuel Miranda, Ryan Seacrest, PewDiePie, Amy Sherman Palladino, Cole Sprouse, Stuart Little, Hulk Hogan, Kevin Hart, Bill Nye the Science Guy, ER Fightmaster, Betty White, Roddy James, Florence Pugh, Amy Klobuchar, and Robert Downey Jr. And she sold 500 tickets, which she said the sales really took off among foot fetishists. Well, I think it would have taken off among anybody. I don't know all those people, I assume, because I'm an old and one of them was actually a car, but Shyfest 2020, get destroyed! Cheyenne was worried by the end that she'd overpromised, and her party was going to be a disaster and end with her going to court. The thing is, though, when they were cutting this promo together, no way anyone knew the pandemic was going to be a thing. So by the time they come back, perfect excuse. Oh, wow, yeah, guys, sorry, gotta cancel, shelter in place, stupid virus. Oh, it was gonna be such a massive blowout. It's for the best. So concerned for everyone's safety. Taylor Swift sends you all a virtual hug. Stay safe. Stupid coronavirus sucking the drama right out of the cliffhanger. All reality, I'm kind of surprised Superstore chose to close out its season with a two-parter. Balls Out called it California Part 1. Per the closing moments of Season 5, Amy and Jonah will be heading to California for Amy to take over as corporate owner Zephyr's new corporate social advisor. And I'm like, you're sure there's even going to be network television again this fall? Show might come back as an app on your phone. It could just be a game app where you're Dina chasing shoplifters around the store. It could just be a grid headed, what should Mateo buy Cheyenne for her birthday? Full of product placement complete with a link to the Walmart app. I don't know where television entertainment is heading. I haven't seen a lot of shows lately that I want to watch. CBS is airing something called Broke that looked like nope. Indebted was a complete disaster, and I was never interested enough to watch Carol's second act because it frankly sounded dumb and ageist. I feel like I'm looking at the TV lineup now like my dad did in the 1970s thinking, who the hell is airing this shit? Don't get me wrong, I have given plenty of dumb way longer than it deserves, as evidenced by my blog. Superstore just strikes me as a solid, well-conceived show in mortal danger of overstaying its welcome. Sure, Amy's character's absolutely been working there for 17 years, but her executive track has been insane. Like, Two Broke Girls insane, ever since she had to all but ask the district manager for permission to blackmail her after catching her snorting a bump of cocaine at her desk during business hours. There was a whole episode where Lori was trying to hire her son to be the store manager over Amy. Not to mention entire episodes where the point was to keep some corporate operative in the dark about this or that aspect of the store. Who cares? Corporate is only interested in quarterly figures. Your numbers are okay, the whole place can be a Lucy episode. She got a huge leg up just cutting Marcus's salary from where Glenn had accidentally been paying him like 10 times the average, and wow, would that have come up in his reviews. Now, all of Amy's hard work has just as randomly landed her a job in corporate, not a place from which a lot of comedy or even television is written these days, but also a pretty dramatic shift from entire acts where everyone in the store is in the break room talking about cereal. Seriously, I don't know what we'll be coming back to this fall season. If the show survives, I wish it well. I have a few other pieces I want to highlight. It's going to be a little weird. I've been loving Dispatches from Elsewhere, and Ralph is not. Once it was clear that the game was over, but the show just kept going. It was just about these people's lives. Well, that was no longer of interest, and that's fine. I gotta say, I'm also a little unclear with where it's going, because near as I'm able to figure, Jason Segel, he plays Peter, he's one Muppet of a man, discovered this live-action role-play event that took place in the 90s called The Institute or something. Or it's just a webpage crafted to make me think it was a thing. Whatever. It took place before the internet was especially useful, so participants got involved via some fairly analog means, like the posters they show in the game. The last episode I saw was run up to the finale. It was called The Creator, and between the Fredwin character addressing the audience directly, stepping into the role of narrator, whatever his experience of that experience was, and the other characters referencing him occasionally, it was easy to miss that we hadn't actually seen him in a while. When the show recounts what he'd been up to, arranging M&M candies into intricate mandalas and calling every county courthouse in the entire world over the course of the past year to learn the final disposition of Clara, wow, that was a lot of work. And when the show had revealed the games mistress as Lee, a woman consumed with guilt over having turned a teenage girl's vision of artistic wonder into what boiled down to an augmented reality platform, destroying Clara in the process, that is, wherever inspiration and reality diverged, then taking the millions she earned in the process to recreate that spark of inspiration as this game they've been playing. One of them, I can't remember who, observed whoever was running this had spent a lot of money on it. Anyway, when they realize they haven't seen Fredwin in quite a long time, they go to his condo and they find it open. It's like he's living in his beautiful home, but as a homeless person. That said, he hasn't visibly let himself go. He looks like he's more or less kept up with personal hygiene. Just, he's stepped through into his own personal elsewhere. The team, well, Janice especially, but they reach out to him, bring him back out of his mind palace, which was looking so peaceful and blue compared to, finding out what was going on in the game, who actually owned all the locations, calling everyone in the world looking for what happened to Clara, etc. They bring Fredwin back online and they meet up with Lee, who meets them at Clara's house and explains about the idea, an augmented reality unit that sells people things as they watch their own memories. It sounds like a prequel to The Matrix, but in developing the tech, Clara, it's very strange. Lee made it happen. She made it commercial. She took Clara's idea of highlighting the beauty in the world and turned it into money-grubbing garbage. The team points out that they know Clara was not buried at the mausoleum, and they demand to know what happened. Lee said that's not up to her. That's up to him. And she points to a young boy in clown mask. The boy was seen similarly made up once outside Janice's window and outside Fredwin's window earlier in this episode before he stepped through into his blue heaven. None of them noticed the boy in the street before Lee referenced him, but no one seemed especially surprised to see him, and similarly, no one needed any explanation of him. Peter said he needed to go with him, and Fredwin asserts they should all follow. Janice asks if that would be allowed, and Fredwin says, "Anything is possible. We're Team Blue and our story is our own." I could know what happened. It's downstairs in my DVR. I could step away, watch it, and comment, but I want to look forward to it. I've got this episode, I've got the Brockmire closeout, I've got the Parks and Recreation in-character reunion recorded, and if they air any more Motherland, I'll chat about that. Oh, from where I left off, it looked like Anacostia would be interrogating Scylla. Based on the rest of the show, I'm expecting some excellent things from that showdown. The spree attack on the Bellwether wedding was a wild affair, witches countering battle magic with dampening fields, which, given their craft resides in vocal harmonics, left our heroes defenseless in their own home base. I mentioned Brockmire, and this season has been quite entertaining. Yes, Jules getting drunk with his daughter and revealing that Jim couldn't have known anything about Beth's mother was disruptive, pitting daughter versus father on the eve of his big baseball Hall of Fame award, but this show thrives on conflict. The scene that really stood out for me so far was when Jim Brockmire confronted the team owners about what he would do if they fired Jules. He knew where all of the bodies were buried for these craven, perverse, and disgusting team owners, and he let them all have it. I can't repeat all of his accusations because they were filthy, but Hank Azaria wrote himself the most delightful attack points. "I can't decide which one of you is dumber," he said, pointing. You, or you. Your family is basically 100 years of war profiteering and 200 years of cousin fighting. Your dad's your Uncle Steve, and your mom's your Aunt Susan. Your third wife is technically your grandson, Leslie. And you strangled that stripper in international waters. You made your 4-year-old daughter get lipo. And you murdered the last dolphin. You paid for the privilege. So, in conclusion, gentlemen, you either keep Jules on, or I walk, with all of your secrets, nothing but time on my hands, and an ability to attract attention like perhaps nobody else in American history. The choice is yours. The man is phenomenal. Less engaging has been this season of the FXX production of Cake. Short animations and live-action sketch pieces has featured, well, gotta say, it's been a range of quality. If the animation is good, the writing's been off. The live-action segments are anchored by a seaboard adventure called Shark Lords, barely worth a single sketch one-off, but returned multiple times in any given episode, complete with introductory segments, so clearly they've got some time to pad out. The found VHS casting footage of actors enduring ridiculous situations as part of an audition process has been fun, but it's kind of hit and miss. The animations this season haven't been tons better, to be honest. There's a recurring Walter segment featuring a little furry blue guy in surreal situations it's hard to identify as even having a protagonist. One recent set got off to a great start, and this character, and it looked like it was potentially mid-20s, was being collected by a set of low-level, angry, deeply disappointed parents, having been evicted from his actively neglected, trash-strewn apartment. A guy is who he is. That can't have been too much of a surprise for them. Completely carefree, joyously naked except for the t-shirts he could not stop singing about. On the ride home, he's basically vandalizing a coloring book while his restive parents continue to endure his half-naked singing on their backseat upholstery. Either way, this season is a significant step down from season 1. The Quarter Life Poetry Slam productions have explored work, interpersonal, millennial sisterhood, listening to one another, validating each other's experience. One for this past episode had our heroine trapped in the bathroom stall in some serious colorectal distress, but for one of the fancier executives chose that moment to use the facility and check her phone and primp and loiter while the poor worker is biting through her lower lip, waiting for her to leave the room. She finally cuts loose with a rather boisterous release that clearly provided profound relief, but as it turns out, the judgy, fancy executive lady was still within earshot and made her disapproval known. I completely understand the dynamic at play here, but hang around long enough, that's absolutely within the range of sounds you'll hear in that space. And oh wow, did I just watch 5 minutes of a young woman trapped in a washroom stall holding on for dear life lest her daintiness be jeopardized? There are probably entire websites devoted to this sort of thing, and FXX aired it for free. And thing is, that segment used to be poetry. Now, bad as that was, the Shark Lords thing is bloody awful. The show is a reality TV spoof with nothing but dramatic character reveals in a tiny space from which there is no potential for escape or isolation. Ship at sea, 7 people including a camera guy on a chartered ship, and stated goal of the operation is to pull sharks from the water and rape them. I didn't need one segment of this, and it's multiple shorts per episode. Oh, and it's exactly as funny as a hangnail. Shoo! And yeah, second season's probably drawing to a close here, so that's probably fine, and if there's not a third season, not certain it's going to matter to me. Animation is so hit and miss anyway. I caught part of Sci-Fi's new Teasy Jeezy. Oh, I see what that is now. All the letters are advanced one. SYFY Teasy Jeezy. Fun. Yeah, I saw their animation segment featuring Cyanide and Happiness. First segment was Post-Apocalypse Bomb Shelter, family prep for the nuclear holocaust, and the dad is stocked full of canned laughter. Can after can he opens, and it's canned laughter. Oh, what a laugh riot. Ugh, it was 2 minutes of that. Then there was another segment, too damn funny. Guy goes around yucking, hey, pull my finger. And an especially wicked co-worker pushes his finger, and to the youngster's horror, the office complex actually gets sucked into his own butt. I haven't looked, but Eric Andre, are you writing Cyanide and Happiness now? Yuck, I will not be tuning in. Also, I've been recording a bunch of Mystery Science Theater 3000 episodes rebroadcast on IFC, which have quite a lot of fun. Oh, I have to say, I feel like they absolutely got better as the series progressed. I took in an episode or so of each of the first 5 seasons, running from when Joel was the hapless gizmotic staffer launched aboard the Satellite of Love up to when Mike took over in season 5. Mike is pretty much my doctor for this thing. He was a satellite guy when I started watching in the late 90s or so. Going by my DVR info, The Crawling Eye was the first ever episode, though IMDb reports this was actually their second season. I also saw The Corpse Vanishes, complete with an opening segment of a space adventure serial. From season 2, I enjoyed their take on side hackers. I feel like that's the kind of movie that happens if you read a lot of 1950s pulp fiction and you decide to make a motorcycle film, but you can't get James Dean because he's dead. So you invent this kooky off-road open sidecar style modification and pretend side hacking is a thing and build a mild misunderstanding into a murder and towering revenge plot. Gets downright Shakespearean. It looked like they were going to joust by motorcycle, but it ends up being a fist fight culminating in a gunshot and this sad little wet fart of a movie. Standouts in that episode are the fast-paced patter track they laid in, providing color commentary for the side-hacking race in the opening sequence. Hilarious. From the third season, I watched Fugitive Alien, which was a quite ridiculous Power Rangers-inspired sci-fi space adventure, along with its, oh my god, there was a sequel. They'd somehow made a sequel. Neither were especially interesting or worthy of send-up, although Mike Nelson made an appearance as Jack Perkins, and I friggin' loved seeing him on screen. I noticed a decided improvement by the fourth season. The writing was on fire. I watched their take on Ed Wood's Bride of the Monster, which was freaking hilarious. I actually kept that one, disc X317. By then, their commentary was more structured, carried consistency and callbacks in a way I'd say were missing, or at least weaker, in both of the Fugitive Alien riffs. Fugitive Alien, honestly, I think Woody Allen did a better job with What's Up Tiger Lily, and I don't think that release was entirely necessary. Then, Season 5 introduced Mike Nelson as the intern Doc Forrester in TV's Frank Shot into Space. I ran into the revised credits and airlock sequence I recall from when I first started watching the show. I watched their take on Santa Claus. Oh, wow, what a turd of a film. Right from the get-go, with an irresponsibly racist opening sequence introducing Santa's workshop as populated by the children of the world. The children assist Santa in his workshop full of Dr. Seuss-inspired equipment to spy on the world's children, including one rich child who could want for nothing except his otherwise doting parents are emotionally distant, and one poor little girl who is determined to be good despite a demon in naughty red Spanx, constantly chittering in her ear to steal the dolly. It's the only way for a poor girl to get a dolly in this world is to steal one. And 3 young boys who do listen to the demon, throw rocks and break windows and lie to Santa Claus. Why, those bad little boys will get lumps of coal in their shoes. Christmas finally arrives and Santa makes his rounds. He's beset on his route by the demon, who steals his flower of invisibility and his sleeping powder, so he gets treed by a dog, and the child he put in charge of his workshop summons Merlin to rescue him. It's a dubbed 1950s film from Mexico. It's culturally odd. Just for ignoring the demon and being good, poor little Lupita is rewarded with the biggest, most beautiful dolly ever, which is totally the experience of, most poor kids, I think, sure. Where this connects up with my collection, it looks like I wandered in around the Mary Jo Pell and Bill Corbett episodes a couple seasons later. I was clicking around one day in the late 90s and found Misty's airing on Saturday mornings, so I set my DVR and started watching them on the regular. I remember their take on Diabolique and Overdrawn at the Memory Bank, and one of my very first digital recordings I transferred their production of Hamlet, a black and white made-for-German TV production dubbed in part by Ricardo Montalban, onto its own disc. Then, during the dark ages for this collection, I went with coworkers to see the Misties do their Riff Tracks live production of Manos, The Hands of Fate, at the Grand Theatres in Bismarck in 2012. I'm a big fan of this style of comedy. I love the Ruttles, and this is Spinal Tap. I love Christopher Guest's improvisational gatherings and shows within shows in general. I heckled Thisbe as Theseus in the Minot Arts in the Parks production of Midsummer Night's Dream in 2004, but I feel like there's probably limits. The Misties did hundreds of episodes, 199 episodes of the series itself per IMDb, and dozens of riff tracks besides. Having come to the show fairly late, I feel like I caught them at the top of their craft, and from the smallish sample of earlier episodes I've caught on IFC here, I feel like I missed out on some truly missable stuff. They can't all be gems, and turds do resist polishing, but probably as the team gained experience and made stronger film selections, the result was better comedy. As for the IFC broadcasts, I'm definitely enjoying them as I get the chance.
Call this meeting to order. Calling up a little old business.
Way back there I was talking about the Magician's finale, and I wanted to take exactly this long to mention that experience. Last episode I talked about having to stream a few because Sci-Fi was not posting them on demand. Since then they've posted the musical. But I was having the worst time recording these episodes to my DVR, so when they aired the season finale, as predicted, despite everything I did to snowplow a clean viewing experience for the episode, God damn my DVR. Seriously, okay. Episode aired April 1st, right around 9 o'clock. I turn on Sci-Fi at 8:53 and watch the last few minutes of The Goonies. Seriously, how is that a movie? Yeah, I know, I just lost some friends there. I understand. Sorry, though, I can't. I just can't. But back to how old I am. I'd shifted the Magician series recording to highest priority, and I was physically sitting there watching it. I don't do that, but given that my DVR has been behaving badly when it comes to this show, I was prepared to sit through commercials. I'm glad I did. Halfway through, my screen went black. It was telling me about an episode of Full Frontal with Samantha Bee. This recording is scheduled. It's just going to switch over and record it, regardless of my programming. I was livid. I grabbed my remote and canceled it. I really could not believe that was still set up. I was so clear about priorities, and continued to watch through to the brilliant conclusion. Right as they were shifting to the post-production cast celebration, my screen flashes black again. You want me to record the news, right? I'm going to record the news for you. I'm sure you want me to. KX is more important, right? Never. Oh my God, this thing! I canceled that recording too, grabbed the remote, sent the KX News team, Lauren Culver and Nicholas Qualich, directly to hell, and instead kept that beautiful quote I recounted there from the director, Chris Fisher. I'm certain the news was fine. At that moment, I was entirely uninterested. Funnily enough, I don't believe my DVR is actively preventing me from watching any of the other shows I enjoy, but as The Magicians drew to their final bow, some energy was stubbornly fighting my efforts to enjoy it. I guess the fairies resented being so entirely written out of the production, felt maybe it shouldn't air, who knows? I, for one, friggin' loved it. Again, great job, everyone, and so glad I was able to see it. One final note, I've been putting the last few episodes together at the rate of about one a month. My goal has been to have at least 2 a month, so I'm already 4 behind for 2020, and that's with all the stay-at-home restrictions in place. And I'm always feeling the pressure to meet this artificial deadline and feeling bad about when I don't. Well, as of this installment, I've gotten to disc 880 in my classic collection, and it occurred to me, I've been going at this all wrong. This podcast is a record of my cataloging progress, not the other way around. From here on out, starting in episode 65, episodes will generally release on the following schedule. As I catalog 25 discs in my archive, I will pause to let you know what I'm finding on them. Will that be faster? Will it be slower? Hard to say. Feels like 25 discs is a good amount of progress to make and check in. Honestly, most of the past month putting this one together, I've been focused on movies and my current collection, whereas the focus for this project, VideoFuzzy, is my classic collection. I'll get to 900 and we'll go from there. And with that, it is well past time to get this in the feed and in your ears. Thank you for your patience. Thanks so much for checking in on my video cataloging project. You can check out my catalog listing along with audio links at videofuzzy.blogspot.com, past episodes and Apple Podcasts. Feedback is always appreciated. You can contact me through my blog or podcast sites, via email, or through my VideoFuzzy page on Facebook, or you can follow me at TJVideoFuzzy on Twitter. For VideoFuzzy, I'm Terry J. Aman. Happy viewing!
It might be amazing, it might just be scuzzy. We'll find out for sure the next video, Fuzzy.